This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve here in Sabi, always in the low field, Mpumalanga. So we're looking at the eastern there side. Looks like, of course, today is going to be one of the beautiful, clear sky. Looking through the trees here, all you see, it's all the background on the far east. So my name's I jump aboard to your very own live safari through African bush. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve here in Sabi. Of course, very interesting day. If then we're going to be concentrating this morning looking for this animal. But my name is Andrew, and then I have BK on camera, so he just laughed at me. But that's always is the way it is. So everybody, we came to an area here where the ngoma was actually seen on the far across the road. So I'm gonna come down here. That's why I'm kind of like a little bit of a mixed words, but just because I'm very excited. And it was a dark man calling not far away from here, just on my right. And then he's probably also out of reach, but it's good that we came to an area just to also find out what it's gonna be like. So everybody, we will love always hearing from you, the questions and comments that you always send us. Keep us warm, and then you can still do that by hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, but also at FC on YouTube. If you are then under the age of 18 years, you can still send us an email on kids' questions to wildearth.tv. And then, but it's also simple. You go register on the website, which is the WildEarth website, and you head over to the live page, and then you submit your comments and questions. So we'd love to hear from you, everybody. It's going to be one of the interesting. It's going to be warm, looks like it. Soon it's going to take place. So all my jacket that I got, I'm probably going to have to take it off. I believe so. Around 9 there, it's going to be probably much warmer. But I can't wait to see what happened here, why the dark man is still roaring about, and where the ngoma has gone to from this area. Well, his tracks was coming this way, so that's him. We went the way there, where he was last seen yesterday, and then he came all the way back into this area. Beverly, so you commenting saying that you're also hoping to find some cats or to see some cats. That's going to be good to start off. You know, keep listening every now and then. So if we could hear audio of duck men still roaring about, then we're just going to, you know, switch the engine off and then to understand also how far it is. But the last time you called, they didn't actually seem too far away from us there. So everybody, I'm going to continue to search the western boundary. In the meantime, let's take a quickly look at the weather on our various locations.
Sun's first rays is just touching the tops of this majestic torchwood tree. Just lovely colors all around. And a lone Ngala bull has started his day, much like us. Good morning, everybody. Welcome aboard another live safari with me. I'm Chris. And on camera ops today, we have Darren, who's going to be joining us as well. And early this morning, we did see on the dam cam that there was a leopard female around, which appears to be Kalamba. And we are now just maneuvering along that drainage line where she was moving into. And that will be our initial plan, is to see if we can either locate her or in fact find any tracks, and we will update you on the story as it develops. Now, Andrew just mentioned that it's going to be a warm day and he's going to take off his jacket soon. Well, I still have mine on, and just look at the jacket of this Ngala bull. In his case, it's more of a coat than a jacket. Very long hair. An antelope normally found along river systems, drainage lines, riparian areas or riverine areas and so forth. Thick bush is what they prefer. And all those markings on the face combined with the coats all helps to camouflage them in low light conditions, shade and so forth. Now he's just came out obviously during the night when that is not as relevant, to just come and feed on a little bit more variety up on the embankment here. A very close relative of Kudu, and one can clearly see that in the shape of the horns, very similar markings on the face and the legs. Good morning, Linda. Linda mentions this is her favorite antelope, and I love them as well. There's bold markings on the face and that sort of long coat, the white ridge on the back, the so-called orange socks that they wear. It's all just, it's an extremely handsome antelope in my opinion. It would be amazing if we could find the other member of the spiral horn antelope family, the bushbuck, which is similar to Ngala but a lot smaller. And though we see Ngala and Kudu fairly often. We don't get to see the bushbuck a lot. They are a lot more shy than Ngala and Kudu, and often in very, very thick bush. There's quite a few of them around. It's just not often seen. That will be a little highlight for me as well, if we can see a bushbuck this morning. Hopefully we can find some female Nyalas or Nyala ewes a little later, and then we can point out the dimorphism between male and female. We'll just sit here and watch this Nyala, and that could also potentially give us the opportunity to listen out for any signs of predators, whether it's alarm calls or anything that could lead us to them.
So we're still on this western boundary. We have check almost far to the south, and then a sign of the tracks of these lions crossing back east. So maybe that duck man, since he was roaring, some young male kudu here on the right. He seems to be, oops, it's not static, that one, it ran. So perhaps that duck man is actually pushing this bride perhaps to the west, more to the west, or maybe he may not find them, but since he camped in an area where they were, more likely that he probably smelled that there were some lions in the area. In that case, then he just has to advertise more of himself by sound. That's what I think we heard for the first time when we came to an area. So I'm gonna check now, so towards the gate side. Probably been a long night for these lions. To hunt all night, but really look after or looking forward for their own exercise. Now looking at this impala moving through that beautiful bush. Perhaps this is all about going to look for the water, this impala. But that's it in the direction of where the duckman, he was roaring back there. They gotta move and listening around a little bit.
Last 2 or 3 minutes, nothing that would alert us to any predator presence, and we're still watching this Ngala. And interesting as this antelope was first described, on that note, I don't like the word discovered, because they were always there. The first person to ever describe this in literature was an English naturalist and explorer. His name was George French Angas. And this antelope is also named after George, or at least his surname. If we look at the scientific name, Tragelaphus angasii, named after George Angas. And this was in 1849. Like I mentioned earlier, it would be great if we can find the females, and we can just look at the dimorphism between male and female. They almost don't even look like they could be of the same species. The females don't have that long hair, short head coat, much like Impala, sort of a red-orangey color, and very pronounced white stripes, much like the kudu, but a lot more, and much more vivid striping. Good, Niels. They are substantially smaller than kudu. Kudu is in fact, well, kudu males is in fact, or bulls, would be the third largest antelope in this region. The largest antelope would be the eland. Second place will go to the rowan antelope and then kudu. So a large kudu male is probably another almost meter higher on the shoulder and weighs more than double that of a Ngala bull. Just to give an idea, a big kudu male can weigh in excess of 250 kilogram. An adult Ngala male, about 120, 130 kilogram would be pretty much the ceiling of their weight bracket. Considered a medium-sized antelope, where kudu would be referred to as a large antelope. This is an animal that you would not see up in the Masai Mara, for instance, as its distribution is restricted to southern Africa, mainly South Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and small parts of Malawi. Probably Swaziland as well. Can I agree that markings are incredible? Other than being aesthetically pleasing to us, it does have a purpose, as I mentioned earlier. They are disruptive markings, and it does assist them to evade predators. Probably less so with the males. It is not as clearly defined as with the females. But even there, one can see if he stands still behind that bush, if you didn't know he was there, you could very easily drive past it. As we're about to move off in search of our predators, let's go over to JP at Pridelands to see what he's up to.
Good morning and welcome to WildEarth. We're live at Eco Training Pridelands and we're about to start our walk from Ndlovu Dam. At first we're admiring that absolutely stunning sunrise in the distance. We'll also sit in here for a short while and listen and see what is going on around us before we make a plan of where we're going to head towards. Quite often we hear the different calls of animals and disturbances in the area, and that will often be an indicator in which direction we're planning to head. So my name is JP Leroux, and behind the camera we've got Gerrit. So generally what I do is, from this area, is I love to do circular walks, and I will go into the direction of either where the wind or where the conditions allow us to go, and then also based on where there's disturbances of animals or signs of animals that we would like to try and find. With a morning like this, it's probably going to heat up very quickly, And we would like to come back to the dam fairly early in the hope that there's going to be a number of animals that are going to come in for a drink. Number of bird calls in the background. One of them sounds like a telephone. That little bird is called a brew. For those of you that are familiar with the old telephone that you still had to dial up, that's one of the easiest calls for me to always remember and to associate little things with specific bird calls. But if you would really like to spend some time in learning bird calls, the best way is to actually get out in the veld, go and look for the bird by finding its call. And meanwhile, let's go and see what the team is up to.
Wow. Just as we left the Ngala bull, just saw this hyena approaching us on the road. And it literally just walked right past the vehicle as if we were not even there. Lovely. Now it's interesting that it came from the direction where we suspect that leopard might have gone to, and there was also a bateleur that was flying out. So those are all pointers that could indicate that something is happening down here. And he's just moving into the bush now. We will lose visual of him, unfortunately. It's not the type of terrain where we can follow him. Well, just shows you, watching a Ngala decide to move on, and then 100 meters further, a hyena suddenly appears. And that's why I love this so much. It's just so dynamic, and it doesn't stay the same every day. Every single day is different. Now, just I'm going to scan a little bit where he came from, just if there's any other pointers or indications of a predator, well, another predator's presence. And it's a good idea to take a look at these large ebony trees along the bank. It could often be a perfect spot for a leopard to drag its kill into.
As we celebrate Women's Month in South Africa, we acknowledge and thank those women committed to conservation, working tirelessly both on the front lines and behind the scenes. The Endangered Wildlife Trust is proud of the women who dedicate their lives to fighting to save species, conserve habitats, and benefit people. Here's to strong women everywhere who are dedicated to protecting forever together.
And I turned to Shaun and I saw that she had this panicked look on her face. Either she was afraid that something had happened or she was afraid that she was going to miss out on something. But instead of her missing out on those lions, we drove up next to them and I switched off the car so that she could hear what was going on. Now, these lions had killed a kudu, and she could hear these two cubs, both 8 months old at the time, busy pushing and shoving each other out the way to get to the best parts of the meat. And the mom was lying just to the side in the shade. Now, I'd known that before losing her sight, Shaun probably knew what a lion looked like. But I really wanted her to know what this lion looked like. So for the first time in my guiding career, I started to describe to someone what a lion looked like. And I found that, I started to notice things in that lion that I'd never seen before.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Delivering 6 hours of HD wildlife content live every day is no small feat. It's a massive team effort, and we all rely on one another. Cam ops have a bit of work to do in the morning, up nice and early, get all the checks out of the way, and make sure we're ready to go live. Helping others fall in love with nature brings meaning to what I do. It's also a lot of fun.
So we are still bumbling here, but we got to go back to Djuma pretty much because I think Ngoma, it seems that they have moved further west that side. So we're probably just going to look for something else around here. Giraffe, those zebras, those antelope, various stuff to look for. So not only the Ngoma, they may be around, but we're going to perhaps hope that the Talamati also in the north where they're moving to, there was some herd of buffalo in the area. We're not sure what happened there. Maybe they spend time feeding and then it happens, they'll come back again. So this is where we would probably see the lions if it happens. So I'm gonna carry on. Check. It's beautiful sunrise there. And that's why I actually have to check pretty much around. Since it's gonna be too hot, with some animal species, they would definitely congregate around the watering hole. Some they would stay away from the watering hole once they have drank. But it's always a great idea to search around near watering hole once it's the daylight. Still some are nocturnal that they may want to drink water. Richard, you're asking with a Ngoma pride larger than the Talamati. So yesterday we heard there were 12 of them there. So in Ngoma, no, the other day we count 9, but then 10 including the duckman when he was there. So we know that Talamati, there was three of the female that were missing in that pride. So, which means they're more likely to be anything from 11 of them, the Talamati. So I think in Ngoma they're still about, slightly up, or many by maybe one animal, so 12 and 11, somewhere there. So in Ngoma they're still slightly larger. In number. So yeah, these in Ngoma, can't just believe that they were right in a literally boundary. We almost saw them yesterday morning, but we missed them. So it's great that they always make their way back to the east again, because this is where they move around a little bit. So their territory overlap with the Talamati, and that makes sense. So, but the tracks of duckman, actually he moves slightly right up in there. Perhaps he would be looking for them. But I'm not entirely sure what that Talamati is doing now. Well, they don't have male there, so duckman is left behind here. Since he had that little bit of a carcass, he took from them, and they have moved away without him. So everybody, I'm gonna carry on bumble here, hoping to find any animal. In the meantime, let's go across to Chris, who is also on search for leopard. So right, we're still together. So I'm gonna carry on search. So myself, whether it's elephants, whether it's giraffe, whether it's hippos, I would love to spend time with those type of animals. Birds, but cats, they're also on the list. We found the tracks. Yes, we'll track those tracks. And you're asking in general how large is lion territory. So first, that is also depending in the number of lions in the area. So some area where there's no many of lions, easily for male lions to have anything from 50 square kilometers. But if then so many of lions, it's got to be slightly small, perhaps 35 or maybe 25 square kilometers. So that actually means that the other lions also there has to have their territory, because this territory is so much power that has to be pushed on place, fight over it. Just for an example, if then so many lions in the area, and then one male big lions, he would be forced to have himself 200 square kilometers, which means these others, even they're outpowered, then they have to be within his territory by force of not having enough access to the land. So that it has to be limited slightly. So all of them, they would definitely, at the end of the day, owns portion of the land. But also, always important for the male, when he pushes off his offspring, which those are the young males, they gotta now look for territory. So if he would have all of that 200 square kilometers by himself, and the population of males rise, it's going to be then a problem. So it can sometimes reduce, and it can go larger. So that's depending on how many lions in the area. Yeah, we've seen duckmen So he, with the pride of Talamati, which this is their area, and then he would move with them across to the west. These are elephant plains in there, and he comes back across into Beversuka, into Manyaleti there, and then so this is actually his territory. And then he may keep these for a little bit, depending on the power. If he would fight against all the challenge that may take place, which we heard of these Mbali pride, and then I have a male back there. So I haven't actually seen how that male, how big he is, but got on the news that, you know, some of the Talamati, those were not in the pride. They were with part of the Mbali male, so we'll see what can happen. So everybody, I'm going to head myself to the dam here. In the meantime, let's go across to Greece.
No update yet on any predators, although while we were with the Hyena and trying to see where it was going to go, we did see a bateleur flying out from that same drainage where the Hyena emerged from, and we just working the area, and we did hear kudu. It was alarming, and we're now just trying to see if we can't hear that again or any further announcements of predators. Now when kudu alarm, it's a near sure sign that there's something around. Look at this bird. It's a family member of the bateleur that we're all familiar with. Or is it? Actually, this could be a Wahlberg's. He is very far, and I can't really pick out too much detail, but if you look at the shape, that slight little crest in the back, the brown coloration and the beak, very broad shoulders as well, and that long ruler-like tail, it suggests it could be a Wahlberg's eagle. But we are quite far. Oh yes. Yep, now I can confirm. I did have a glimpse of the beak there. And these are migratory birds. This is my first one for the season, in fact. They such a lovely bird. Fantastic. We've had a few confirmations there that it is a Wahlberg's eagle. And I did mention that it's a migratory bird. Now we've got different types of migrations in birds here. And some birds will stay within Africa. They'll just move to different parts. Remember, the equator cuts Africa in half, so at this time of the year we have a different season north of the equator. So therefore, when it's winter in the northern hemisphere, they'll be down here, and we refer to this bird as an intra-African migrant. Certain other birds will migrate to and from Europe and Asia, which we refer to as Palearctic migrants. And then there's migrants locally that we refer to as altitudinal migrants that just moves from higher to lower lying areas seasonally. Now, Wahlberg's eagles, they stay in Africa. They just migrate to parts of central North Africa when it's winter here, and we are obviously heading into our spring. Well, we pretty much are in a way in our spring, and this is the time roughly where they start arriving here in southern Africa. So my apologies, I mentioned that it's related to a bateleur. Other than being eagles, not really. So I initially thought it was a brown snake eagle as I approached it. And obviously once we got closer, we could confirm it as a Wahlberg's. Interesting little thing about the Wahlberg's eagle is that other than the other members of its genus or close relatives, the steppe eagle, tawny eagle, the eagles in the genus Aquilia, their chicks are usually white in color when they are born. And the Wahlberg's eagle's chicks are brown. Well, I know that our viewers have been following a pair of Wahlbergs that's coming back to our area annually, and as far as I've heard, it's one is a dark morph and one is a pale morph. Now, whether it's one of those two, I will not be able to tell you yet. I will have to spend a season or two down here to fully understand those movements. I'm just basically quoting my colleagues on the information they've handed to me. They might not necessarily be the only pair in the area. I mean, our traversing area is relatively vast. And this appears to be a fairly dark morphed individual. Obviously, it's difficult to pick out the coloration with the contrast it has with the sky. Nonetheless, it is a Wahlberg's eagle, and it is my first one for the season. I keep this little list of all the migrants that arrive at certain times, and every year I try and tick when I see my first migratory birds, and it's just amazing to just try and keep track on how it fluctuates or not. We're going to leave this bird now. He's just having a little preening and grooming session there. Don't want to disturb him, so we will slowly but surely move on and continue in our search for some cats.
So we're still sitting around. And we're just gonna be driving a few roads here. Gonna be now checking the northern boundary. So they updated about the Djuma Pride. I think they're moving west and it turned back to the east, southeast, and that's where the guys got them there. So that where we had a duck man roaring, it looks like it's still out of reach with the Djuma, because they have actually made their way far on the east already on that side. So, but we're gonna carry on, check around here and see if there is any of other animal that may be mobile about. Wahlberg. In the north, that's also Tambotchi Dam. It's been really quiet. We travel around quite a lot, but also, you know, we stop and listen to all of it. The sound of animals, they may make sound. They may alarm call. Animal, they may actually arrive into the watering hole. Those of the antelope before it gets too hot.
Good morning and welcome back to Bushwalk. We just started our walk and started looking at some tracks that are coming in and out of the area towards the dam. And one of the visitors that was at the dam last night was a leopard. So we have a track that is going this direction towards the water, and we've also got a track that is going away from the water. For those of you that don't know how to identify leopard tracks, they're generally very neat and symmetrical tracks compared to that of lion, as well as hyena, that is fairly asymmetrical, especially on the back part of the pad. So some of the things that we want to look for when we want to identify cats is 1, 2, 3 little lobes here at the back, compared to dogs and hyenas that has got 2 lobes. And round over here, there's our toes, which are fairly round. What you'll also notice is that there's no nails marking on the tip of the toe, unlike that of cheetah, which is one of the ways that you can fairly quickly use to separate cheetah from leopard as well as lion. What we also find with the main part of the pad at the back with cheetah is incredibly straight and much longer. And we find also that there's narrow grooves running at the back of part of the foot, and those narrow grooves actually provide better traction for the cheetah. That's also the reason why it has nails on the track, on the foot, to allow for fast running. With leopard and lion, and they will retract the nails, and they'll only use these when it's necessary. Sometimes the nail will mark when the animal is stalking or just before it's grappling its prey, or sometimes in mud. There's also a number of variations to different tracks. Good morning, Jackal, and welcome to the show. There's a number of predators that are very similar, especially to the untrained eye. And those can both include cheetah, leopard, as well as lion. Especially young lion can sometimes be confused with the track of a leopard. Especially if you have also large male leopards, sometimes that gets confused in with lion in that case. But if you start learning to look at the subtleties and the differences between the 3 different animals, then it becomes very easy to identify. So one of the things that I used to do when I started tracking is I actually took the tracking book and then I traced the pictures onto a notepad, and afterwards started learning to draw those tracks, and that's how you start remembering the details of the little tracks. And then also by photographing them, studying them on a regular basis, and looking at the details and going through all the different key pointers and how to identify that track. There's a number of good track booking books out there that you can use if you would like to hone your tracking skills. But what I also can recommend, that it's definitely worthwhile going on a tracking course. And there's a number of training providers that will actually provide tracking courses. And you can also get a qualification that is to the equivalent of the level of your abilities to track. It's something that's really fun, and quite often what we find is that A wide range of different people go onto tracking courses, and quite often they range from business people right through to guides. And we find that anybody can actually track as long as you provide them with the basic skills how to do so. Well, we're going to go and see what other tracks we can go and find. Let's go and see what Chris is up to.
Yeah, there's definitely something brewing around here. There's definitely something happening. A lot of hyena tracks around here. We had that hyena coming out of this drainage. We had the Wahlberg's eagle. There were beetle coming out as well. Something is up here, and we do not know what. There is an insane amount of hyena movement around here at the moment. And that's what I've tried to do now, is just to stop and listen. If there's any birds alarming, any crunching of bone, you know, trying to figure out if there's anything happening. So far, nothing yet. And Darren and I decided today we will find a leopard. We are determined to find one. But if we don't, you know, we're out in the bush, and that alone already is quite amazing. While we're looking at the area and trying to find out what is unfolding here, let's take a look at the upcoming expedition in 2022.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
So everybody back with us, and that what you've seen in Mara there. So 2022, year 2022, if it happens that you already book that to be there, it's going to be such an unbelievable experience that you may see. But also remind me, when we look at these now, the area where we're looking at, so towards us what you see, it's all the growth, green that is taking place in these trees. But then if you look further away, none of that there. So we're in the area where it looks like we've got a whole bunch of hyena. I may actually get a little bit of a cut there. So let's head over to the hyena. We'll carry on in this because it's very interesting. So some area you find receive a lot of moisture than the other side. So and that's why sometimes we're looking at the very much same species of trees. But then in some of the area, not far from that area, then all trees are still dry. Oops. Look at this hyena, everybody. Can you believe this? So, a lot of hyena. A lot of time when we see hyena like these, they're about 4, 5, 6, another one is still to arrive here. So they came back to where the dark man had that young foal zebra. So this is where they have come in. It happens also. We were just driving around along the road here, hoping to see end of the track of any cats that maybe came from the north to the south. Which is actually one of the interesting things about looking. So we always, pick what we want to track for, but sometimes we may mix what we look for. So which means if you pick what you're looking for, that, for example, you're looking for the specifically lions, and that chance you may come across leopard, which is also one of the important animals you may spend time with. So, tracking, looking, it can be opposite way. All a clan of hyena over here, spotted hyena. A Chris commenting saying this is such a great sighting of hyena. It is actually such a fantastic sighting, but they're still actually mobile. They don't look like they have found what they're looking for yet, but this is actually part of the area where they were. They may sent them out quite a lot here the time they were here, but they also came into the area. Check, as you see that one, what it's doing, going over the bush and then making sure that the chemical on the end of the land is left into this bush. It's how they communicate. It's going to be a lot of a message that actually left behind, whether it's something to do with the other clan and they may be around. Eventually they would keep up with the same clan later on when they want to keep up with them. I can tell you for sure, hyena, they're actually a good tracker than we do, because they use sense of smell. If they ever happen that leopard have moved into this direction, lions, they would be behind these cats. So what I will do, I'll try and perhaps stick with them, see how far they go. I'm going to turn around. So that zebra foal that was killed here, they still smelled, and all of the hyena, even these are the different species that they were here the other day, but when they come to an area like this, they can still smell blood that was poured down, and then of course it's got to be any evidence. So I'm keeping up with hyena. I don't want to lose them while we got them. Let's stick with them. So it's good that we still got a visual of them.
Calling all WildEarth explorers, we have a new and frankly awesome travel prize for you to win. andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve encompasses an impressive 28,000 hectares of protected wildlife land in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. As you have seen on WildEarth, andBeyond Phinda showcases one of the continent's finest game viewing experiences and is well known for close-up sightings of the elegant yet elusive cheetah, as well as the rare black rhino. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer before the 16th of September, and you and a friend could be heading to the magnificent Phinda Mountain Lodge, where you will spend 3 nights escaping the real world at this ultimate safari location. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
We're here at the Advanced Rifle Handling Challenge, which is actually lots of challenges in one to gauge the contestants' skills at different distances and different speeds. This is probably the challenge that the contestants are the most nervous about. So let's get them locked and loaded. Are now doing the Hales halt, where they have to run back and forth to a target, turn, take aim and shoot. And this simulates a chase in a real environment and gets the heart pumping and the blood pressure up. James gave us a demonstration, and the skill involved in this exercise is remarkable.
This is a battle of 2 great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
And welcome back on Bushwalk. We're just about to take a quick nap, and then we discovered a really interesting little field sign right over here. And this belongs to a dung beetle. So we haven't seen dung beetles for ages, as most of them are at the moment still in these little cases underneath the ground, and will only start hatching as adults when there's rain and sufficient temperature that increases. I'm not quite sure what has happened to this little guy, but it seems like if something might have dug him out. And there's various tiny little paw marks or claw marks on the side of this little excavation. It's unlikely a honey badger, because they would have ripped open a fairly large area. But they do also feed on these little brood balls. I also find it quite fascinating how these balls are produced. So generally when we see dung beetles, they will be busy rolling these little balls. Some of them will actually just lay their eggs directly into a dung pad. Some of these will form a little ball like this and then drag it underneath the dung pad. And then we get the rollers that tend to roll these away from the main dung pad where it formed. And that might be rolled over several hundred meters. Quite often you see a male and a female on top of a ball as well. And this poor male trying to push the dung ball into a direction with a female on top of it. We also find that the egg will then sometimes be injected inside here. Some of the balls will also be used for a food source for later. But the brood ball with the egg that's in the inside, it's also said that there's a chemical that's injected that keeps the inside of the dung moist and hardens the outer layer, and then provides that moist inner layer as food for the developing young inside the brood ball. The methods that these dung beetles use to actually orientate and navigate to make their ways to these holes are also absolutely ingenious. Some of them will actually use the moon, sun, and a number of other methods to orientate and navigate their way back to the hole that they've already pre-chosen. So dung beetles also play an incredibly important role for us within the ecosystem, and they recycle a large amount of dung back into nutrients and minerals, which is then reabsorbed by plants. A few years ago, there was an interesting thing that was happening with dung beetles, where they actually collected a large number of them, cleaned them up, and exported them to Australia to go and deal with a fly problem that they had, as there was a large outbreak of flies due to the cattle industry and no natural occurring animals that would recycle that dung. One of the big mistakes that they made was actually cleaning them up, and they discovered that there's a tiny mite that actually lives underneath the dung beetle, which is also incredibly important for the well-being of the dung beetle. And the next batch that they sent over all had those tiny little mites on the dung beetle. Well, we're going to move on and go and see what else we can go and find. Let's go and see what Andrew is up to, and as we move off.
So we still got our spotted hyena. They're moving intensely, so perhaps they know where they're going. Definitely they know the way they're going when they're all foraging like this in the same route, where usually when I hunt they will spread around and maybe see one or two, but this is also another way of hunting, especially they may aiming to head back to where they stay. But I'm trying to keep up with them. Perhaps they would discover another mound around here, if that there is the case where they're now looking for their home to sleep on or roost. It's just so cool that it's still actually bright and very nice sun that it rises already beautifully. This is what we always talk about. Predators, that they still move when they can, early in the morning like that. Where leopard and lions, they mainly do the same. Especially with the hyena, they don't mind moving in the day, midday, when they knew there's something that it's happening around, perhaps smell where there's a kill. A steenbok, yeah? But they weren't going to go for the steenbok, so they're still moving. I'm going to keep up with them, because there's a mound here in front of us. Oops, looks like one is interested for a steenbok. I'm just gonna stop here and see. Bit of a chase, but I don't think the other one is very interested in that steenbok. So steenbok is quite fast, very fast, but you could tell they're really pushing for anything possible they can here to have a number of these animals like that can easily bring down a bigger prey species as a wildebeest, those type. A zebra is once is cornered, they do severe damage in that animal. In some area where they hunt in packs, and of course they go for big game like hemsbok and things. So I'm gonna keep up with this hyena. In the meantime, let's go across to Chris to keep us an update.
Coming from Andrew's hyenas to the hyena of the small animal world, yeah. Look at this very interesting structure here, and we are still trying to see if there's anything on leopard, and we in fact smelled some leopard urine probably about 100 meters back. It smells like popcorn. I don't know if anybody's ever been on a safari in Africa and smelled where leopard scent mark. It literally smells like fresh popcorn. Quite interesting. Anyway, look at this. Just looks like a very untidy little web, and a couple of leaves and all sorts of things there. And obviously a spider. Well, let me rather say spiders. Now, this is the communal web spider. They're tiny little spiders. They're about just smaller than a pea, if not smaller. And you probably will have quite a number of them living in a community like this. So here you've got their communal living area, which is often pieces of leaves and grass entangled in web. So there'll be little chambers and so forth where they live in. And then you'll have a communal web area. Oh, sorry about that. That was not intended. A communal area where they'll catch insects. Now, they're tiny little spiders. Now, it makes sense. Now, most spiders, as we know them, are usually solitary, and they'll have their little webbing. These guys living in a community are then able to capture larger insects, much larger than themselves. They consume them almost like a pathogen. They'll literally run out and they'll overpower in numbers. And in fact, I'm not sure if Darren would be able to get there. There's in fact a fly that's been caught here that's already expired, and it doesn't seem to be consumed yet. It just shows you need to take time and just look at your surroundings. Even though we're looking for a leopard, there's often these little gems and very interesting little features of the African wild that's often missed in our drive to find the high-profile species. Well, from my little small insect or arthropod world hyenas, we're gonna go back to Andrew to see what his hyena's up to. Just trying to look if I can see some of them. Another interesting thing that I was taught by a mentor of mine is that if you have a small cut on your skin, obviously I'm not referring to arterial bleeding, a small cut, and you don't have anything to cover it, if you can find spider webbing, just grab a whole bunch of it and put it onto that cut. It seems to coagulate the blood almost instantly. Now, I'm not a biologist, so I can't tell you exactly what the chemical action there is, but I have tested it and it does work. So whenever you're in the bush and you have a little nick and it doesn't stop bleeding, just grab the first bit of spider webbing and just place it directly on the wound, and you will see the blood immediately coagulating. It is quite interesting how that happens. Just note how strong this is. I don't want to break it, but I can tap it. I mean, we know spider webs in a home, they're so easy to break, but I mean, and this is not even the strongest one. I mean, soon the rain will start and we'll see everywhere between the trees these massive orb webs with their webbing, and they've got extremely strong webbing. Even it's almost like fishing line. Not as strong, but strong. I still can't see any. So I'm not sure whether this is still an active colony. Just see some remains of insects they've eaten. Well, we're going to continue on our search for leopard and leave them behind here. Fantastic.
Good morning and welcome to Bushwalk. We're out and about looking at tracks and other field signs this morning. And one of the field signs that we did find is a pile of scat that's right over here. And this belongs to a leopard. We've also been following his tracks. He's been moving up and down this road. He most likely went for a drink at the dam. We also looked at some disturbances on the ground. It almost looks similar to when they were mating. However, we don't find female tracks, so it's more likely that he was just resting there and maybe doing a little bit of a roll and getting agitated. So one of the ways that leopards actually demarcate their territory to keep out pesky neighbors is by often depositing little piles of scat like this. This will act as a visual as well as a scent mechanism to mark their territory. They will also use urine. Quite often we see both male and female leopards spraying urine against bushes. You'll also quite often see that they will rub their faces against branches, which is also typical of how a house cat would mark objects. And lastly, between their feet, there's also an interdigital gland, which will also secrete some secretions as they're walking, which will then act as a chemical marker. They also use this to track one another down, especially when it comes to males and females. And currently there is a male and female in the area, which is often mating. We've heard them last night and the night before, quite close by to the camp. For me, the sound of a leopard at night is probably one of the most beautiful sounds that you can have in Africa.
We are now heading towards Treehouse Dam, hoping to just again find anything. The plan to find predators are still in the back of our minds. That scent that we received there didn't yield anything. There's no tracks of leopard, so I came to the conclusion that it's probably from yesterday, and there was a lot of elephant movement, and they, in all likeliness, covered the leopard's tracks. So there's nothing to follow. So we are going to investigate around Treehouse Dam. If we do not find anything there, we'll probably move a bit further north back towards Gowrie Dam, just to see if there's anything on that leopard that was seen on the cam this morning. And this area seems a little quiet where we are now. Not much. Even the Impala seems to be absent. Hi there, Linda. Yes, it's fairly reliable. It all depends on what type of bird it is and what type of alarm call. So certain birds, and I mean there's too many to name now, but certain birds will have alarm calls for specifically snakes or birds of prey or so forth. And then when it comes to the larger predators, you have to listen to certain birds and also the way that they vocalize. It's not always foolproof, but it gives you an indication. However, things like Impala and Kudu and bushbuck alarming are often, and even monkeys and the virid monkeys, those are very, very good indications that they see predators. Especially if it's very intense, the alarm calling. Then you would, so the birds are less reliable, but if it's the right bird, in combination with a few other factors, it can lead you to a predator. Now, there's a couple of Impala and Kudu just here. We're just going to watch them for a moment, because remember, we did hear that Kudu alarming earlier. And that's never a bad idea to just quickly pause and observe their behavior and continue if there's nothing to take from it. And they look very, very content. Remember the markings on the Ngala that we saw earlier. You can see they're very similar markings on the face of the kudu. Trying to figure out what they're consuming, because it's either a large fruited bush willow or a red bush willow that they're targeting there, and there's not much leaves on there. Now we'll show you a little later what I refer to as bush willows, and I'll hopefully get you to see the difference in the three bush willows that dominates the area. But the bush willows are starting to produce flower buds. And I'm wondering if that is not what she's after. Sure seems tasty. Like mentioned, we're just going to pause here for a moment. Nothing here to report in terms of predators. Let's go over to Andrew and let's see what he has.
So everybody very much apologize for that little bit of a issue there with the signal, but hyena, they have went into there very much deep. That's why it was a problem when we got down trying to follow them too much there. So they haven't come out, but there's some guys that are still with them. So lucky we decided to look around for then. We got some elephants. Not a great visual there, but it's just so cool to see them on their own environment. What you see through thicket. So they do their best of feeding, but it's part of that drainage line system. But we're so lucky that we can still show everybody. So if it happens these hyena camp this far close to the elephants, they won't accept it here. Definitely not. And they will be pushed immediately away. So elephants with their young one, they don't really won't tolerate anything, especially carnivorous species. They wouldn't for sure. It's just so cool that they well spread around here. Only see the young one, and then we saw the bigger one. So it's a lot of them in that drainage line. It'll be cool if they come out to the road here, that we can be able to see them very well. Young one can be vulnerable to lions. Many times this is when they're separated from their parents. The parents just move away from them. And then with the temperature that is still dropped down, and then they don't do quite a lot of flapping ears. You're asking with the hyena attack an elephant. It's actually very rare that, but if it happens, the young elephant isolated, far from the parent, they would definitely attempt to attack that young one. Where there we saw 6 of the hyena, and they're all powerful animal. So their bite, it's even more than a lion. So they would definitely attempt to kill that young elephant, where I have seen before hyena kill the baby hippo. It was so sad to watch it happen. They are ferocious hyena, they're a strong animal, but I only need their chances to get access through that animal. So with all these carnivorous species, when they avoid hunting such animals like an elephant and the rhinos, those are hippos, is so that it's something to do with, to kill the animals like these. Even we're looking at the young elephant like that, it's probably just above a year old or a year and a half, but they're still powerful animals, elephant. So to kill them, just take a listen to that sound before we carry on. Hyena. So everybody can hear the hyena as well. Let's listen to this. And that was all about communication on his hyena. And then if it was a response, you would hear continuously sound from various areas. But then after that, we also hear a little bit of these elephants trying to make communications. So these are the oldest that are making sure, because I can even notice that it was a hyena, and they were making sound just to make sure that all of these young ones, they in place. So airway on the elephant is too far away, so they have a thick neck which is covered with such a strong muscles. That's why lions suffocating in such animals is very difficult. So we're gonna stay put here.
RSA has a long history, over 90 years, of being involved and even pioneering aspects of the conservation sector in South Africa. Over that long history, we have realized that all of the issues that we are facing both locally and globally are due to human impact. Therefore, we need to concentrate on working with people, and that is what WESA does. What makes me passionate about the work that we do at WESA, and in particular the work that I engage in, is actually connecting with people. Currently the work that I'm working on is working with youth in a skills development program, and just to meet the youth and to hear their stories and to bring them opportunities that we hope will have some impact on their lives really, really fuels me to get up every morning. A huge shout out to the women that I work with, as well as to all the women that are contributing hugely within the environmental sector, both in South Africa and in the world.
We got there, he had probably moved a couple of 100 meters down the river and was about 10 meters from this causeway. So I radioed the lodge quickly and just asked them to bring a land cruiser around and some tow straps. So we thought we were going to try be heroes and save this giraffe. And now a big bull, probably over a ton, he's a big unit. Got the tow strap one side of the giraffe and managed to get it around him with the boat, and the other edge of the tow strap obviously back onto the bank. So we made this U around him because he was lying quite close to the bank. And yeah, we put that land cruiser in low range and we just gave it hell and pulled that giraffe, and the tow strap slipped up and we thought, oh no, it's going to slip off the top of the head, and it caught on his ossicones at the top. And that last 10 meters pulled him out onto the bank, and he battled. He was obviously quite weak and all that.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is the call of desperation with the cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops. Oof.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We're still out and about and looking at tracks this morning. So one of the tracks that we did find over here is one of the tracks of the jackal species that we have in this area. When it comes to the two different species of jackals, the tracks are identical and we can't separate the two from one another. One of the interesting things that I do find about jackal tracks is if you take a little stick and you put it between the pad as well as the toes, it will never cut through the toes at any angle. So you can make a little cross like that to test your theory if it's a jackal. For me, it generally looks like a Christmas tree. This is also a fairly young jackal that we have over here compared to the adults that have a much larger size track. I also find it particularly interesting when it does come to jackals is that they will often allow the young to stay into the territory for just over a year to towards 2 years. And then those young will assist with the raising of the next generation of pups that are born the next season. I also find jackals incredibly smart. They're one of the animals that will quite often, when they make kills, tear it in half, and the male and the female will then take that pieces of meat and take two separate routes back towards the den to provide that meat to the pups. And that is a strategy to prevent that both pieces or the whole carcass gets taken away from only one dog potentially carrying it towards a den. However, when it comes to other dog species, such as African wild dog, they've got another strategy for that. They just simply regurgitate their meat at a den site to the pups. So the two species of jackals that we have in southern Africa is called the black-backed jackal as well as side-striped jackal. And we have heard both of them calling here at night. And quite often we find, especially with black-backed jackal, that they have noted that they've got individual calls. And if we can identify individual calls, they most likely are also using it for individual identification purposes within a group. We're going to move off and go and see what else we can go and find. As we move off, let's go and see what the Djuma team is up to.
We are back at Djuma Dam, Gowrie Dam. And we had reports of leopard vocalizing somewhere around here. Now, Unfortunately, with audio, it's difficult to pinpoint a direction, so we're just listening out if we could potentially hear them vocalizing again. It would sound like almost like somebody sawing wood, and can't really impersonate it. I'm not that good at impersonating animals, but it literally sounds like, you know, a rasping sound like sawing wood as they walk around and roar. In the meantime, we're just looking out closer to the edges of the water. Still a bit early for the majority of animals to come and drink. Will be a hot day today, so later afternoon would be a great idea to just sit at one of these waterholes. A couple of reports coming in over the radio from other guides, also that had audio of leopards. And other than trying to locate our own one, we'll definitely listen out for any reports, and surely if there's an opportunity to join another sighting, even as much as we love to find our own leopards, we will consider that, obviously. And then I agree with you, Debbie, my fingers are crossed as well. It's still early, we have a lot of time, and temperatures are still good. So they will probably not yet go and sleep. Nothing. It would be nice if we had a direction to start looking. Also, last night heard elephants that were highly distressed, and it almost sounded like there might have been a lion growling at them. I'm not sure if any of our viewers was looking at the dam cam, and perhaps leave a comment if you did see any lions around. We know Dark Mane was just a little bit further northwest from the dam yesterday morning in that open area where we saw him. Even the grug. There's some viewers that commented on hearing the leopard sawing, if you want to put it that way, but it's in fact like a roar. It's produced in the same way lions roar. It's just a different sequence, which results in a different sound. That's fantastic to be able to hear that, and that's again the value of these dam cams that we put out, or the dam cam. There we go. A grey go-away bird. Also a bird that could sometimes alarm when they do see predators, but you cannot always trust them. They seem to be alarming for everything they see, from baboons to humans to pretty much whatever they feel like at the time. sitting here for basically like 5 minutes already and nothing that we heard. It's probably not a bad idea to continue and rather utilize the time before it gets too hot and the cats start to move into shade and start to lie down. Yeah, another morning. Well, I'm feeling we're getting closer. I'm feeling we're getting closer, and I know a lot of you are holding thumbs. Likewise. We're going to continue. Work the area in front of us. Yeah, the sun is bright today.
So we are mobile. For now, we lost these sighting of elephants. It's actually quite a drainage line there. But we're still in an area. It happens maybe it's a big herd. And this hyena, they vanished. They didn't actually even, they probably come out of the drainage line. We perhaps maybe bump on them on the other side, still on a forage, hunting around a little bit. But that, BK, see that giraffe there? Just gonna, you want me to drive back, BK? Okay, so we got a giraffe in the deep there. All, you know, these animals, see what they do. You would expect to see them right in the top of the land, but they drop themselves into this drainage line. You know, when you look at these trees, they're all the tambochis, and this is what they always go after. Eat these leaves, some trees in this drainage line system, and that's why animals love it, those browsers, because it's still quite a green, and they still get a lot of food in this drainage line system. That's why all elephants, such as giraffe, they would be found in the drainage line system because of the browsing habits that is happening in this area. Just can't believe how invisible they can be right now. Just a silhouette that we can see.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. The area where we are standing over here is where Old Wallow was. And during the rainy season, there was a large amount of mud that accumulated over here after elephants came into the area. And what happened is simply it started off with a little footprint, and then the warthogs started delving themselves into this area and come to wallow. Eventually it became bigger and bigger, and the elephants also utilized it. So this little rubbing post over here was used for a very long time by the warthogs, and it created a very smooth surface. But what caught my attention is the secretion that has been deposited right over here, and this belongs to an African civet, and this is anal gland pasting, and it's one of the ways that it leaves little communication scent marks, telling little bits of information about the individual, as well as its reproductive condition. So what I also find particularly interesting is that African civet, they would actually used to use them for harvesting this scent gland secretion from the anal genital area, and that would then be used for the making of perfumes. And how they used it is they used this in its refined form to fix floral notes in those perfumes. However, that's no longer being done. We also find that in the periods that it used to be collected, that it was also one of the most valuable commodities. And in this refined form, even smaller little amounts of it was actually stirred into coffee to actually provide it with a sweetened taste. Well, we're going to move off and let's go and see what else we can go and find. As we move off, let's go and see what Chris is up to.
Nothing yet. We are still trying to work the area and stop, listen out. Nothing happens in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We will head further north. And it's about just making sure you've covered the area thoroughly. Leopards are phenomenal creatures. They could be the easiest of animals to find at times. You'll just around the corner and they'll be lying on the road. Then there's these days where you really have to turn around every single stone and throw every single plan at finding them. But I feel today's the day. Love that anticipation that it builds. You know, it's like you're starting to really look forward to a leopard. Make it sound so easy at times. And I don't think it often reflects the reality of, in fact, how tricky it can be to find these things. The conditions can at times be challenging, and it just makes the day that you do see them so much sweeter. And funny enough, we haven't really seen elephants. I mean, I don't know. Andrew had some, but not sure if I've just been in the wrong areas, but it's not that I'm specifically looking for elephants. We know we will see elephants eventually, even if it's this afternoon. And our journey this morning has taken us through quite a variety of landscapes, and we're now in this slightly more open woodland. Remember, leopards are found in every single habitat in this area. While we're continuing to drive around and look for the leopard, let's look at an upcoming expedition to the Masai Mara.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
So we're sitting here with these beautiful elephants. See, they're coming out of the bush. Thought I'm gonna lose that visual for the first time, but everybody, just what you've seen up in the Mara there, to also remind you of what we are here, where it's quite a lot of a slightly open, not like what you see back there, where of course it's going to be interesting things here 2022. If you're already done that booking, you already experience quite a lot of things, not only the landscape, but animal that within that land. But that would also include various antelope, some antelope that we don't get to see here. Those Thompson gazelle, even some of the white-bearded wildebeest. They maybe get luck of seeing them up there, but majority of them, and there would be blue wildebeest, which there would be in the area. Crocodile, various different. And then, so, yeah, we didn't actually get to see the topis as well out here, which you would have a chance to see those topis up in Mara. Well, myself, I also haven't seen a topis, which is, I'm really actually dying. I can't actually wait to get a chance of myself, perhaps during of my working of guiding. So as a guide, you would think, oh, well, they've seen them all.
At what age do baby elephants learn how to use their trunks perfectly?
Eddie, you're asking at what age the baby elephants learn how to use their trunk perfectly. So they only begin with, so they eat when they roughly about 6 months, 4 months, 6 months. That's when their first food to their mouth. And then before then, so 2 months they would start to use it, but not completely. They only can't do nothing about that thing. They don't even know what it is. So by age of anything from 7, a year old, they perhaps can use it by breaking very soft material as a small, such as twigs and all of soft grasses. So they only gain this experience of using trunks as they grow. But age of 2 years, that's where they're completely, very much an experience how to control their trunk very well. So it's actually a similar thing to human when you can't, all of a sudden now we walk from the very young age. You need to crawl, we crawl around, we need some of a material around here that we can hold and able to stand and of course fall down. So, but with elephants doesn't actually cause so much of a hurt until they learn them, because it's all about practicing these muscles in there. Because even when they're too young, these muscles, there's still so many of them in the trunks. They only grow stronger due to the elephants developing on growth. So which he actually estimated the muscle about 60, 70,000 somewhere there. So it's quite a lot of muscle that is perhaps in that trunk. And they're just so comfortable animal. So I'm gonna make sure that we got a view of them by making it easy for BK, because they have actually walked pretty much a circle around us, but now we got them, all of them there. Elephants, they pretty good animal. They were able to establish their own operational area. They can establish, they make quite a lot of access throughout the area. For the next time they're around, it's easy access for them. When they break this tree down, this is where now, when this tree down, of course, the grasses will grow through that thicket. The next rain, which is some of the grasses already, in so many of them that have grow into this thick. But in a very flat land where there's not much of these trees, these grasses have been disturbed because animals have walked over it every now and then. So that grass that is actually grow into these fallen trees, which provide many of other animals' habits, such as the antelope, they may hide their babies. Once it's thick enough into that, the leopards were able to find a hide. Those snake, we thought they're not around, they're around. They use these kind of habits where it's covered for a shade when it's hot. Birds that don't want to be exposed to sun, they may went into these tall grasses and hide. So they do great actually in their own world by providing such help to the other animals. So we're gonna stick here with this elephant.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Competitors are in the room behind me right now for the birding challenge, where they have to look at pictures and identify the birds and then separately listen to bird calls and identify them. But it's not easy. This is going to be the toughest one. Here we have the previous year's winners. You can see they're trying to see if they can remember all the answers, and look at them taking a sneak peek.
Just so incredible to see them, how they pull this wood up and then they try trunk. You know, we're talking about the young age elephant learning completely to use the trunk. Since they learn this over and over the years during of their growth, and then in the end they get it perfectly. And you look at this female, what she done, put the whole wood in her mouth, but the tongue also do pretty much good by controlling that wood as it been peeled back by these huge molars of theirs. In the end, it's only the wood come out on the other side cleaned and the whole bark been taken. Looks like her tusk, when I look at them, they're all slightly equal in length. So perhaps that she used both of these tusks when she feed. But also you would experience how thinner they are. So looking at the female, where male, they grow, if there was a male that size, it would be already, the tusk would look very thick and well developed, much than that. And they are browser and they grazer at the same time. So when they push tree down, which they look for the roots. And the roots is more nutrients in there because it's underground. And the roots is the only thing that is actually support trees' life by transporting a lot of waters up in that tree. So it's got to be very healthy. And that's what elephants prefer it so much. So you're asking at when and how long do the elephants sleep for? So that sleeping time for the elephant can be any time of the day, any time of the night, since they forage through the whole day and the night, but they then can sleep for at least an hour when they want to, maybe 45 minutes when they want to, so they don't actually have to sleep for many hours like other animals. They need to spend a lot of the time eating than sleeping, so to maintain their weight also. And that also, a lot of time, especially these big bull, they're more likely to take it easy like that, standing up. When you come across these male, when they've done that, you will stay there with them and they don't move for at least an hour or an hour and a half sometimes. And what you see, they're all just gonna lean forward, backwards, kind of like movement of their body, but their legs still stationary. And some they can go on the floor when they want to. it's going to be great for them because they're in between the water station, the midday or just before when this temperature rise, and they're always, looking forward to swim in one of these watering holes around here. We're just on the eastern side of Gari Dam, which I believe they may come out there later on during the course of their day. And depending on the amount of food, but if it's food available for these elephants, especially fully grown male, you would take roughly about 150 200 kilogram, and that's gonna be the bull that already weighs 6 tons there. And they would need pretty much over 100 liters of water a day. But that also not only at once, so they drink quite a few in a day. And that's why they weren't stationary for a long time in the watering hole, so that they don't want to spend time in one place. Which means this afternoon we may not find them around here, maybe somewhere else. You saying baby elephants are so adorable. They are adorable. I always say. The way they do, especially when these teenagers get around together, and they have quite a lot of play, and then of course push one another, disagree, and then agree what is going on in the group. So these young ones are still pushing for the dominance. When they do that, somebody has to make sure that, okay, he wins the battle. Can be sometimes taken in a serious fight, but they're young. A lot of the stuff that is actually happening in elephants, it's even closer related to human. They have a good memory, but cannot be more than human brain has actually ever developed in terms of learning, in consciousness, gain ability to learn things that you actually see it new in your brain. But with elephants also, they have good access to those kind of good memory. Remember well what happened when. So she stand. One of the back leg is actually up slightly. That is actually because 3 legs are all gonna have to support the whole weight of the animal. So from time to time, since they spend a lot of the hours standing up in one place, maybe if depending on the available of plants in the area, they may spend a lot of hours, and then they have to do that. Switch legs. This is also some things about when they're sleeping, standing up, these males. So everybody, I'm gonna take another moment looking at these elephants. Perhaps the rest of the group can join in this area.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We're still out and about, and we are on our way back to one of the dams where we started our walk from this morning. There's, however, a lot of tracks that we've seen out here throughout the morning, but not anything that's really fresh and worthwhile to follow up. Some of the tracks that we saw out here this morning is a single buffalo bull that was making his way towards water. Also some elephant and a number of hyena as well as leopard tracks that's been moving up and down this road. There's a few interesting signs that we also found a little bit earlier, which could have potentially be when this pair met up and actually mated. So we actually heard them also the previous night, where they were calling to one another and then mating in a drainage line close by to the camp. We're going to see what else we can go and find as we slowly start moving back to the waterhole, which is going to provide the opportunity for you to absorb the landscape and the sounds of nature.
We have a surprise for you today. After a lot of hard work and somewhat frustration in a way, there we go. Just have to mention to our viewers, we are in an area where the signal is not 100%, so just bear with us if there is a break in transmission. And this is now my 4th leopard here at WildEarth. And thanks to James Richard, who mentioned that it is Sasha. Now we know there is 2 leopards around here. And if this is indeed Sasha, it will be a new leopard for me as well. I know there was reports of 2 leopards around here. And one of them was actually a young male. lovely. Absolutely amazing. That's a young male, that definitely. We will have to reposition, so if we do lose signal, we will try and stay with them. We are on a borderline area in terms of signal, but we will try and stay with them. So I'm just going to ask you to bear with us for a second as I'm just going to follow the tracks of one of the Djuma guides who's with us in this sighting. I'm just going to come around him there. What do you reckon? Are we good, yeah? It's just coordinating with Darren with me just to make sure that we've got a good view of it. Our signal is rather unstable at the moment. We will stay here and hopefully, and in the meantime, we're going to see what Andrew is doing.
So good luck there, Chris, with the Shasha, and hope all of the signal went very well there. Well, we hope to spend time with the leopards this morning, but ourselves, we still got the elephants, which is actually just a beautiful view of them here for now. So I decided to spend time with them before they vanish into the drainage line. I know some guys have driven around here and they say they were on a drainage line system, so we very lucky seeing them now came up. Looks like they're gonna make their way perhaps westwards from here. This is actually towards Gary Dam finally later on. So spread around apart, but it's so good for their own benefit because they in the herds they don't have to be together all the time close by, since so many of these young ones and then there's a lot of 4 years old of these young male. So everybody, we're gonna stay put here looking at these elephants. In the meantime, let's go across to Greece with the Shasha, the leopard.
Now, he is growling at the other leopard that is present. Now, according to the guides who found the leopard, and they were moving around quite a bit, so ID would be tricky, that the other leopard would be Tlalamba. My apologies. I'm still relatively new to the area. It will take me time to memorize all their names. I cannot see the other leopard at the moment. I know some viewers mentioned earlier that in that camera shot she was briefly visible. And definitely a bit of growling here. He's not happy. See how fixated he is on her, and that ears that are pulled flat. He's not a happy camper. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but he is growling at her. Impressive young male, I must say. You know what is amazing for me is that this is now the first time in my life that I've seen this leopard. Good morning, LP. Yes, indeed. I was just mentioning he's quite impressive for his age. And viewers are welcome to correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as the information that I got, he just turned 2 years old. And that seems to be confirmed from what I can see in terms of his general features, but you can just see that neck developing. He's definitely, he promises to become a formidable male if he continues the growth form that it just shows. I will just have to wait it out. We do have a very good visual on him. We do not see the other individual, and we will unfortunately not be able to move too much. We know we've got a fair signal here. We are quite far north. But at the moment, we'll just wait it out and see what unfolds here. Seems like he's just lying down behind that little bush there where we just had him. I can just see an ear moving every now and then and hear him. It's quite amazing. Darren and I were just having a cup of coffee that we brought along in a flask while moving around in the area where the reports came from initially. And we heard the radio crackle, and that the Djuma guide who found them in fact have 2 leopards. And needless to say, it was an opportunity that knocked on our door, and we just had to seize it. We therefore quickly swallowed our coffee and put Wendy into gear. And it paid off. Now, we will reposition momentarily. Just keeping my voice down. Obviously, we want to hear and listen what she, or both of them, does. Now, he's just lying down in that little bush where we had him last. Every now and then, I just see the tail coming up. And they are here. That is, we're right on the edge of a drainage line. So in terms of maneuverability, we might be a bit handicapped by the terrain. As you can see, it's become fairly dense. We've got this little convergence of two drainage lines, which always makes for difficult off-road driving. And at the same time, we want to maintain a healthy distance to the animal as well.
Seen the tail?
The tail just kept on flipping up. Okay, there we go. You can see a leopard's bum. You can just see how thick it is in there. So I'm hoping they'll remain in an area where we can view them. At the moment, it is possible. But we are going to reposition to hopefully regain visual and perhaps see which other female we have here that's been reported.
The best part about being a guide is being able to live out in Africa's wild places and being able to share that with people. Of all the challenges, for me, the one that I'm probably the most comfortable with is the game drive. I think that's what I do most days, so that would probably be what I feel like I'd do the best at. Almost like someone's put little Lego blocks up there and made this perfect little sort of statue, and there's another one further along as we drive. One of the challenges I'm the most nervous about would probably be shooting. I think on the day there's always quite a bit of pressure and intimidation, always associated with it, but I guess we'll see how it goes. I hope I'll win this competition, but if I don't, it's still been an experience of a lifetime, and I've learned a lot and met a lot of really, really cool people.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river. It's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that. How beautiful. Look at that. One crossing, two to go.
So we're still looking at the elephants, which are still in these beautiful bushes. They're still in the bush, but cool that we can still have a visual of them. So they seems to be enjoying the bushes around here for now. We haven't seen a male, big male that has come into the area. Those are the males that don't really always associate with the girls, the female, the herd. They would rather be somewhere else. But also as a bunch of bachelor group. All a combine of all the different age of male, a bigger one. A white t-shirt, you're asking how can you tell the age of elephants? So many times we only estimate of their age by looking at the size of the animal, but also look at the skull itself. So if it's in a fully growing, you truly see these temple, which is actually above their eyes. You see the skull pretty much visible, then you know it's actually a fully grown elephant. So you still identify age of these 25, 30 years upwards by looking at the skin as well. That's how you can tell, especially males. They go big in size, body-wise. Sometimes nothing to do with the tusker. Some of them, of course, they have very wide length of a tuskers, some of them shorter tuskers. Some of them even lose all of these tuskers, but they're still enormous size of body weight. But yeah, the skull structure can indicate you that an animal, it's not more younger, it's an old. So many of the female that we're looking at here, they are some of them early 20, 25, 35 years old. We've seen some of the big female that are here in this group, especially the one that she was close to us. She will be ringed around nearly 40 or just the early 40s, somewhere there. They can live longer, the elephants. Their life is actually threatened so much due to the disease, mainly heart attack even. It's a natural cause of disease that may infect them. But also a lot of a death rate. It's something to do with the collapse of their molars, their tooth. They become very painful when they nearly 55 upwards there. Such a beautiful bird sitting around this animal. So everybody, we're gonna sit here looking at these elephants and the birds that are association together here. In the meantime, let's go across to JP, where they're on a walk.
Welcome back to Bushwalk. So we're experiencing quite a quiet morning so far. So we did provide an opportunity for the viewers to ask some questions where we'll be providing some answers on. So one of the questions I was asked yesterday and was asked to repeat was a question from Bridget. And the question was, can we allow kids on walks? And what ages? So it depends entirely on the game reserve where you go to, and it's generally by the age of 12 to 16, depending for which lodge you'll go to, where they will allow kids on walks. So for some of the things that we've done in the past is we will make a judgment call if we have an incredibly well-mannered, well-disciplined and young children. We will allow them on walks, but just on the perimeter of the camps. So if they follow instructions well, then we'll make a decision sometimes to take them a little bit further out. And then generally from 16 upwards, and we'll also make the discretion call on that if we're going to approach dangerous game or not. Quite often, even with adults, we make the decision if we're going to approach or not approach dangerous game species on walks. It just depends on people's fears as well as how they respond to instructions. Good morning, Jackson, and welcome to the show. With the colours red, I don't like people wearing red. So generally the colours that I don't like people wearing is bright colours and colours that will potentially portray aposematic colours in nature, which is warning colours. Sometimes some guides will tell you black. However, I disagree with black. It doesn't really become a problem for me in the bush. But white is one of those colours that really stand out. And then any neon colour is something that you want to avoid at all costs as well. It's always best to try and dress as neutral as possible when you are going to go on walking safaris. If it's on a vehicle and you're not going to do a walk, it doesn't really matter. But the colours that you want to look for is shades of olive, khaki, and also browns. They work perfectly. Even colors such as blue works wonderful. So, well, meanwhile, let's go and see what Chris and his leopard is up to.
It's quite a mission to stay with this leopard today. He is in front of us, and I've seen the female, which the report says is Tlalamba. We'll confirm once we get a good visual of her. Just my apologies, I'm going to have to every now and then revert to our game drive radio. We're the only vehicle here, and there is another vehicle from Djuma that wishes to come and join us at the stage, so there might be a little bit of communication with them. I'm sure that won't be a problem for this safari. And then we are on a borderline signal area, so whenever we reposition, we might momentarily lose signal, but we will bring you right back as soon as we regain it. I'm gonna have to reposition slightly, and that is part of the fun of leopards that are moving, is that they, look at there, There's the she. Let's just move around here. Lots of drainages here. It can become quite tricky. And I'm always trying to avoid going over trees and so forth if I don't have to. And here we go. I'm hoping that our signal's still good. Shasha is about 100 meters ahead in the same direction that she's looking at. Station responding to these Timbiri Ingwe coming. Sasha is just up ahead, literally in front of our vehicle, about 100 yards ahead. Darren was just asking, and the female is to our right, and right in front of us there's an big old knob thorn tree, and I do see him out and about there. Not sure whether that was a little bit too far, but Shasha just uttered that sawing sound that I mentioned earlier today. Right, we're going to keep going. We seem to be back on the embankment, which I'm hoping will help us keeping signal for you in order to... It's exciting stuff. At WildEarth, Djuma. Unless this female is Shadulu, which apparently it's not. We'll definitely have some of our fans to ID as soon as we get stable signal again.
So we just kind of like get out of the thick there bushes, and then there's more elephants in the road. So it's quite a number of elephants in this area, just to the eastern side of Agari Dam. I guarantee it, they maybe arrive into that dam for a drink. Perhaps not now, but there would be. And it's just all stationary there, resting a little bit. And then the female on the front, she's probably nesting the baby. Looks like it's done. Doesn't take long. It's quite a lot of big one. Couldn't really tell which one is a matriarch. Perhaps, maybe they come to the open, then we can able to see which one is which. And of course, it's got to be an older female that it's in the area here, that she'll be in charge. And that young one, it's actually put within them in the middle there, so for safety.
Lots of growling going on here. The female is lying down there. We can barely see her. She's just trying to make herself look smaller, and Shasha is literally just about 10 or 12 meters ahead of her. And there's a bit of a standoff between them. They're both just growling at each other now. And it's difficult to make out why and what is happening here. There's definitely no food around. If this female is indeed Tlalamba, I need to get used to that name, Tlalamba. It'd be amazing if some of the viewers who have been following them for a long time can mention if they are related. As I said, I am still fairly new at WildEarth and Djuma, and understandably it will take me time to fully understand the dynamics of the population here. Hi, James. Definitely in a foul mood today. Well, both of them. I think she's probably more defensive. He is a young male, but he is a male essentially. And even at this stage, he's bigger than her. And I'm not sure why he keeps on following her, and then when he moves away, she keeps on following him. She merely looks like she's trying to keep him in her eye in terms of making sure, okay, what are you up to? This is phenomenal. It's not every day you get 2 leopards at once. The largest congregation of leopards that I have seen in my career was in the Timbavati region. I remember I was doing a stint there, and the one day I found a leopard female that managed to bring down another female Impala, and she dragged it up into a marula tree. And she had 3 cubs that were already very much in their teenagers, like 12, 13 months, so they were fairly large already. And then another male showed up, so it was a total of 5 leopards at once in the same spot, which is rather unusual. Well, in this particular case, it was a mother with 3 cubs, and also again unusual for them to reach that age and the entire litter survive. Quite a mortality rate amongst leopard cubs. But that is another sighting that surely etched into my memory and that I will never forget. I am tempted to relocate or reposition, but I am also worried that we will lose broadcast. The signal is very patchy.
Get a tail flick every now and then.
But I do foresee that they might still stand up. Good morning, Nazreen, again. Yes, leopards do steal kids from other predators, often from other leopards. I've seen large males owning kills made by females, or even chasing younger males off kills that they've made. I have seen them taking prey from a jackal once, where a jackal was busy consuming a scrub hare. And a young male leopard, he was just at that stage where he left his mother, viciously attacked this jackal. Didn't get hold of him properly, a couple of bites and scratches, but he just relinquished his food and he took over the scrub hare. So yes, leopards also scavenge. It is something that people often don't realize. Again, the one day had the very unfortunate and sad event to see a rhino carcass, and in this case it was a natural mortality. And about 2 weeks later I found a male leopard that were eating on that carcass, and it was absolutely putrid. One of the most horrific smells I ever had in my life. But anyway, this was after 2 weeks when lions were consuming vultures. There were brown hyena there in that area. They came to eat a little bit. And 2 weeks later, a leopard goes there and eats like virtually rotten meat. It's protein and it's free. So there will be times where leopards will also scavenge. Not as extensively as hyena, but right, we're going to take a chance and reposition. If not, we know that there's signal here. So let's give it a shot.
Every year in August, South Africa marks Women's Month. WildEarth would like to acknowledge and thank all the amazing females who have worked tirelessly to share our nature with the world.
We're gonna have to just wait, okay? She's gonna come out there just on my right-hand side, and she can see these impala.
Now you've got to inhale it. It burns. I don't know if it's supposed to work instantly. Go, girl, go! Get her! Get her, girl! Get her! I'm so looking forward to following her story in the future.
I'm really hoping there's two. I'm really hoping there's two. But you know, even if there's one, oh my goodness, everyone!
And I get to share it with you. Isn't that extra special? I get to experience it and show it to everyone.
Guiding as an industry has become, over time, more and more professional and more recognized as a profession rather than just a hobby. And so to be recognized for that professionality is really kind of it's humbling, really, to be able to say that. It's definitely birding is the thing that I feel most comfortable with in terms of categories that we have here. At least comfortable. I mean, you never know how you're going to shoot on a particular day. You can have a good day where you blast everything as you need to, in terms of the targets, and then you can have a shocker where you just, miss a single shot here or there, and that's basically the end of your day. To be considered for such an experience is really a powerful thing, and so I'm here just to have a lot of fun and experience what the competition's all about.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth. Day.
Our gamble paid off, hopefully. Managed to get visual of both of them. Shasha just went to lie down in the shade of that large fruited bush wallow. And what we believe is Hlalamba, just about 20 meters to our right, lying underneath a guarri bush. Now, if you didn't know they were there, I mean, if you just drive around, it's almost near impossible to spot that animal. The growling has subsided. They seem to have lost a little bit of interest for now. But I do know one movement will prompt it again. So if Shasha decides to move, she's watching him with an eagle eye. Or should I say a leopard eye? It's a lovely area, this. I can appreciate just absorbing the scene and the view. What a legendary way to end a morning safari. We set out for the last 3 days looking for leopard. My apologies. And we managed to find, and again, I'm not going to take any credit for this sighting. It was a collective effort between a number of guides. We were part of that search process, and we played somewhat of a role in covering a certain area, and ultimately one of the Djuma guides managed to find these, and again, opportunity that literally just knocked on our door. What a girl. And finally, towards the end of our morning safari, we find them, and we hoping that we would find them again this afternoon and take you live on a safari to view them. Just lovely, isn't it? Like I mentioned, we will probably return this afternoon to try and relocate them again. What a wonderful morning it was. Ultimately, we reached our goal and managed to bring you this lovely animal. Join us again this afternoon for another live safari into the African wild.